Have you ever found yourself in a strange moment where everyone around you smiles and showers you with praise, yet deep within, unease stirs? It is not fear that grips you, but rather a sense that something is not true. A fleeting glance, a compliment that sounds strangely forced, a feeling out of sync. We are often taught the art of success, but rarely do we learn how to guard our minds against the envy and pretense of others. Thus today, we shall explore together 10 clear signs, rooted in the steadfast principles of Stoicism, to discern envy and falsehood, not to judge, but to live with greater wisdom and sovereignty. 1. Actions never lie. Words can be learned, deeds cannot. We live in a world where words can be trained to near perfection. People learn to speak pleasingly, to win favor, to keep an image. Yet in Stoic philosophy, this is mere surface. Words can be disguised, but actions, especially those taken when no one is watching, reveal a person's true nature. One may smile at you, speak kindly, even praise you in public, yet it is their conduct in your absence, when unseen, that deserves your attention. Do they truly stand with you? Or do they sow doubt, mock, or quietly diminish your worth before others? Stoicism teaches not to judge by feelings or prejudice, but to observe with clarity and objectivity, especially through deeds, not words. One may skillfully conceal intent in speech, but repeated actions inevitably unveil the truth. Falsehood can hide behind eloquence for a time, but it cannot endure in behavior. A simple yet frequent example. Someone claims they support you, believe in you, but when you seek their help, they always have a reason to decline. When you achieve something, they fall silent or fade away. No harsh word is needed. The absence of supportive action is a silent, undeniable rebuke. In contrast, those who truly stand with you need few words. A timely presence, a small gesture of kindness, speaks volumes of their sincerity. Stoicism exalts integrity, the harmony of thought, read and deed. When someone speaks grandly of honesty and virtue but treats others unfairly, this internal conflict is what Stoicism warns against. They do not live the values they proclaim, and therein lies the signal of insincerity. A principle in Marcus Aurelius's thought is, train yourself to see what is really happening, not what others want you to believe. Meaning, do not merely listen to how people speak of themselves. Observe how they treat others, especially when they have no reason to pretend. There is another subtle sign: consistency in action. The sincere possess a clear code. They do not bend for circumstance or audience. They treat all with kindness, from the mighty to the nameless. The insincere, by contrast, are kind only when it serves them. They may be courteous to the powerful, yet curt and impatient with a servant. Such small cracks reveal where genuine virtue ends and theatrical ego begins. Stoicism does not teach suspicion, but vigilance. When words and actions diverge, trust the action. Behavior is far harder to control than speech. Words can be rehearsed. Spontaneous actions expose the true roots of one's character. At times, the danger lies not in someone saying the wrong thing, but in them speaking rightly while acting wrongly. They know how to strike the chords of human emotion, yet do not live the music they preach. Stoicism insists, judge not by declarations, but by the life lived. A compliment may be false, but a kindness, repeated, steadfast, flows from the truth within. Thus, if you wish to know who someone truly is, do not rush to trust their introduction, nor be dazzled by sweetness of speech. Watch what they do. Let their actions speak, for actions never lie. 2. Your success is their test. Success does not change them. It merely reveals their true nature. Success is not merely a personal milestone. It is a test of the relationships around you. In Stoic philosophy, how others react to your success often reveals their true nature more clearly than any words ever could. Not everyone can meet another's triumph with genuine joy, and it is here that sincerity and envy, cloaked in politeness, begin to show themselves. Those who truly walk with you in thought and spirit feel genuine happiness at your achievements. They need not shout your praises in public, but their warmth and congratulations are free of pretense. In their eyes, your success does not threaten their standing, nor does it leave them feeling left behind. They understand that your victory does not diminish their own worth, and so their response is calm, steady, understated, but real. In contrast, those harboring envy often struggle to maintain their composure in the face of another's success. They may not openly display jealousy, but small signs betray them: misdemeaning silences, congratulatory words that feel obligatory, or remarks laced with subtle diminishment. Comments such as, "Probably just lucky. Anyone could do that with the right conditions," or "It's not that big of a deal," serve as a veil for inner insecurity and quiet resentment. Stoic philosophy emphasizes objective and tranquil observation. When someone succeeds, a Stoic seeks neither applause from others nor validation to affirm personal worth. Yet they observe, noting the reactions of those around them. For behavior in these moments often exposes the deepest layers of another's character. There are those who were once close, supportive, and warm. Yet when you achieve something significant, they retreat in strange, inexplicable ways. Their coldness comes not from overt acts, but from the absence of familiar conversations, the omission of any acknowledgement, the silence where once there was connection. They do not attack, but they no longer stand present. This does not arise from busyness, but from feeling threatened by your growth, even though you never intended it. Another common reaction is subtle competition. When you reach a milestone, the envious are quick to highlight their own achievements, even if unrelated. They recount what they have done, what they are about to accomplish, or spin stories to prove they too deserve attention. This is not inherently wrong, but when driven by an inability to accept another's success, it reveals a lack of inner maturity. Stoicism teaches that we must not allow the reactions of others to unkindle our own sense of worth. Yet this does not mean we should ignore the contradictions revealed in relationships. When success uncovers negative emotions in others, you have every right to reassess the closeness of those ties, not to sever them in anger, but to redraw boundaries, protecting your own inner peace. It is worth noting that some do not voice envy outright, but seek to undermine you through subtle actions. They may speak well of you to your face, but behind your back, they sow seeds of doubt about your competence, your integrity, or your journey. They question the roots of your success, cast suspicion on its legitimacy, or chalk it up to mere luck. Such behaviors may not be obvious at first, but in time, consistency or the lack of it will make everything clear. Stoicism does not urge us to become suspicious or cynical toward others. It urges us to keep our minds alert and lucid to see it. When success comes, do not look only at the spotlight. Listen to the sounds behind the curtain. Those who are true will not need to prove themselves with grand gestures. You will sense their presence, not for gain, not for image, but because they are genuinely glad to see you rise. Finally, remember, success changes no one. It simply brings into the light what was always there, and the reactions of others to your success are not a test for you, but for them. 3. How they treat those who have nothing to offer. Respect should be reflex, not strategy. In daily life, We often see those who are polite, kind, and gracious, but only when standing before someone with status, power, or something to trade. They are impeccable in meetings, speak gently to superiors, and show respect to those who wield influence. Yet the truth of a person's moral character cannot be judged by how they treat those who can offer them something. The real test lies in how they treat those who can offer nothing at all. Stoic philosophy regards morality not as declarations of virtue, but as consistency of action, especially in moments free from compulsion, reward, or heat. In such moments, there is no reason to perform, no need to play a role. What emerges is the purest reflection of character. When a server approaches the table, when a security guard opens a door, when a janitor works silently, these are the spaces where no one demands that we be good. How a person behaves then, when there is no audience to impress, is the clearest measure of the ethical values they truly embody. The genuine soul shows respect indiscriminately. They greet the doorman with the same kindness as they speak to the CEO. They do not measure human worth by business cards or titles, for in Stoic thought, every human being deserves fairness and dignity, regardless of how much power or wealth they possess. Conversely, the insincere reveal a sharp divide in their behavior. They are freely courteous before those who hold their future in their hands, but become curt, impatient, or dismissive toward those who cannot benefit them. This is not circumstance, it is character. When there is no motive to perform, the truth emerges. In this, the Stoic does not demand perfection from others, but observes quietly. They understand that true kindness does not need effort to be sincere. It is not a tool for transaction. It is the fruit of inner discipline and the awareness that one belongs to a community larger than oneself. One of the key lessons Stoicism teaches is this: moral worth is not measured by how we treat our equals, but by how we treat those who can do nothing for us. How a person reacts to the weak, the powerless, the overlooked. This is behavior that cannot be stoaged. Rudeness excused as busyness, coldness masked as oversight. Beneath these lies a value system of hierarchy, not of equality. Moreover, in social relationships, there is a certain type who remains close only as long as you have something to offer. When you lose your status, your job, your influence, they vanish, or their demeanor shifts. You are no longer useful to them. This is not mere disappointment. It is a sign that the relationship was built on transaction, not on genuine regard. Stoicism does not teach us to resent such people, but to recognize them. Recognize so we do not misplace our expectations. Recognize so we are not wounded when truth reveals itself. Recognize so we safeguard our inner peace. In a society that prizes efficiency and exchange, it is common to judge others by their usefulness, but that can never justify discrimination in behavior. Human dignity does not lie in utility. It lies in existence itself. From the Stoic view, a steadfast mind does not change its manners based on whether the person before us has something to offer. Respect is not a conditional act. It is the expression of moral autonomy, one of the core virtues that Stoicism forever upholds. Therefore, if you wish to truly know someone, do not watch them hosting honored guests. Watch them when no one important is around, when only ordinary people remain, when there is nothing to be gained. In that silence and simplicity, truth finds its voice. 4. Praise, if it flows too smoothly, it's often a trap. In daily interactions, praise is an inevitable part of communication. It can serve as recognition, motivation, or the glue binding relationships together. Yet in Stoic philosophy, not all praise carries the same weight. Some praise stems from sincerity, from careful observation and understanding. And some praise is wielded as a tool to manipulate, to curry favor, or to conceal ulterior motives. Stoicism teaches that a rational being must distinguish between genuine praise and subtle flattery. Both may sound alike, both may bring pleasure to the recipient, but they arise from entirely different motives. Failing to see the difference leaves one vulnerable to manipulation, emotional exploitation, and entanglement in unhealthy relationships. One of the signs of flattery is the frequency and intensity of the praise. When someone showers you with excessive compliments, offered out of context, untively, or far beyond the actual value of the situation, it warrants suspicion. The sincere offer measured, clear, and timely praise. They do not compliment to impress, but because they truly see something worthy of recognition. In contrast, flattery often carries an air of hollowness. The flatterer may praise you smoothly, using flawless wordage, yet lacking depth. They seldom specify what impressed them, relying instead on empty phrases like, "You're amazing," "You're good at everything," or "No one's better than you." Such words may be pleasing to hear, but strip away genuine feedback and true value. Stoic philosophy urges us to examine the motive behind praise. The flatterer does not always seek your happiness. They may seek to soften your defenses, to catch you off guard, or to sway you into a decision that benefits them. At times, excessive praise is used as a tactic to create rapid intimacy, to win trust, and then to manipulate. Another sign of insincerity is the disconnect between words and actions. Someone might speak highly of you, yet their actions betray a lack of genuine respect. They might call you brilliant, but never listen to your ideas. They might hail you as influential, yet never introduce you to others, or trust you in real situations. In Stoicism, a core principle is the ability to observe with clarity, unclouded by emotion. When receiving praise, instead of basking in immediate pleasure, the Stoic mind pauses. It asks, where does this praise come from? Are there actions that accompany it? Is the speaker consistent in their behavior across different circumstances? Praise that lacks specificity, that feels too effortless, or that repeats without clear context must be met with vigilance. Stoicism does not ask us to distrust everyone, but it does teach us not to be easily swayed by what is pleasing to hear. Sweetness in words can signal goodwill, but it can also be the cloak of manipulation. Furthermore, excessive praise is often used as a means of creating emotional debt. When someone praises you relentlessly, making you feel special above others, they may be laying the groundwork for a future favor, making it harder for you to say no. This is a subtle form of psychological control that the Stoic practitioner must learn to recognize and guard against. At its core, a healthy society neither lacks praise nor abuses it. True praise is built on impartial observation, free from excesses, and free from hidden agendas. It is an expression of respect, not a tool of control. Stoicism teaches that the wise are not swayed by either criticism or praise. Both should be treated simply as information, not as measures of one's worth. And in a world filled with carefully orchestrated exchanges, maintaining lucidity in the face of praise is an essential aspect of inner strength. Not all praise is recognition. Some are finely crafted snares, and sometimes the sweetest words are the most dangerous. 5. Consistency is truth. Words may change. Principles should not. In Stoic philosophy, one of the key markers of a person's true nature is consistency in action, in thought, and in response across varying circumstances. A person may learn to speak pleasingly, adjust appearances to impress, or behave properly in favorable conditions, but without consistency throughout their behavior, Such displays are no more than temporary masks. Stoicism regards consistency not merely as a sign of good character, but as proof of an inner steadiness, a clear value system, and a life governed by principle, rather than by emotion or circumstance. The consistent individual does not alter their attitude based on the social standing of those before them. They do not become kinder before the powerful, nor harsher before the weak. They do not say one thing and do another. They do not act according to immediate gain, but live by a firm moral standard, whether observed or unseen. Conversely, those who lack sincerity or carry falsehood within often cannot maintain consistency in behavior. They shift their attitudes constantly, adapting to each situation and each person. In your presence, they may show support, understanding, even lavish praise. But when circumstances change, when they no longer need you, or when someone more important appears, their demeanor shifts as well. This is not flexibility. It is a symptom of internal instability and dishonesty in action. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that while we cannot control the external world, we can and must control ourselves. Thus, the true Stoic trains to act consistently, whether in fortune or misfortune. They do not let moods govern conduct, whether facing joy or sorrow, praise or criticism. They maintain a spirit of calm, a measure of speech, and a respectful attitude toward others. In doing so, they build trust, not with promise, but with steadfastness in every deed. Consistency by nature cannot be faked. One may perform for a short time, but over time, contradictions in thought and emotion reveal themselves through incoherent actions. They may speak of virtue yet violate it for gain. They may claim to prize fairness, yet stay silent before injustice. Such inconsistency is not a mere flaw. It is a warning sign of an undeveloped moral foundation. Stoicism calls us to seek consistency not for rigidity's sake, but to achieve an unshakable inner freedom from external sway. The consistent soul is not moved by praise nor wounded by attack. They do not alter their core to please others, nor do they betray their principles because of shifting circumstances. That stability makes them trustworthy, not because they are always right, but because they are always real. Observing consistency in others is a way to understand them deeply without asking many questions. How they respond to repeated situations, how they treat different types of people, how they handle praise, criticism, or power. These guided but truthful behaviors expose their inner core. The less one's attitude shifts with the winds, the more they live by principle. The more one bends to circumstance, the more they reveal moral instability. Consistency builds enduring trust. When a person does not need to perform, but simply lives rightly, they free themselves from the burden of pleasing others. And in that freedom, they become more authentic, both to themselves and to those around them. In the end, consistency is not easily achieved, but it stands as one of the clearest signs of true character. Behavior may be swayed by emotion, but the Stoic continually returns to principle. In a world where everything shifts with ease, consistency is a mark of depth, a proof of maturity, and the clearest expression of truth. 6. Your reaction to criticism is your true portrait. When criticized, the ego reacts, but character reveals itself. In Stoic philosophy, a person is not judged by how they behave when praised, but by how they react when confronted with criticism. For in moments of praise, anyone can maintain a positive image, but when questioned, corrected, or met with disagreement, true emotions, genuine values, and the depth of inner maturity are brought to light. Stoicism views criticism not as a negative, but as an essential part of self-improvement. A mind trained in this philosophy does not fear criticism, recognizing that every piece of feedback can serve as an opportunity for learning and adjustment. The Stoic receives feedback calmly, analyzes it rationally, and is ready to amend their ways if truth is found within it. For them, being criticized does not equate to being insulted. It is a natural aspect of growth. By contrast, those burdened with pride, arrogance, or dishonesty toward themselves often react sharply to criticism. They may become defensive, respond with anger, scramble to justify themselves, or even attack the critic. Rather than listening, they focus solely on protecting their image, their ego, or their standing at all costs. Such behavior does not disprove the criticism. It exposes the fragility within. A telltale sign of those unwilling to accept criticism is their tendency to conflate critique with personal attack. Instead of seeing it as an evaluation of behavior, they interpret it as a rejection of their entire being. This confusion intensifies emotional reactions and blocks them from learning from objective feedback. Stoicism teaches that it is vital to distinguish between the self and a behavior. A flawed act does not make you a bad person if you are willing to correct it. Those who react negatively to criticism often delay responsibility. They may blame circumstances, other people, or external factors. Some attempt to discredit the critic rather than face the content of the critique. These behaviors are not only avoidance, they are clear signs of emotional immaturity. Meanwhile, those with true inner strength are not unsettled by the feeling of being judged. They do not react impulsively, nor do they rush to defend themselves with sharp words. Instead, they pause, observe, reflect, and if the criticism proves valid, they willingly accept it, apologize, or change. Acknowledging a mistake does not diminish them. It is an act of inner strength and a commitment to continuous improvement. From the Stoic perspective, observing how someone responds to criticism is one of the most reliable ways to assess their character's depth. In those moments, the outer layers often crack. A person can maintain a composed facade when all is smooth, but when suddenly criticized, the natural reaction reveals everything. Whether they have truly trained their mind or are merely maintaining an image. Moreover, some may not openly resist but show passive resistance. They remain silent, yet refuse to cooperate. They do not argue but begin to withdraw or subtly oppose. Such silence is not acceptance. It is a mask for negative emotions and dissatisfaction. Stoicism does not encourage such false acceptance. It demands honesty, even when discomfort arises. In the end, one's reaction to criticism is a natural, unprepared test, and thus a reliable one. Those who can face their imperfections with calm humility and a desire to grow are on the path of living genuinely and deeply. In a world where appearances are easily crafted, the way one responds when confronted by truth is the clearest mirror of true character. 7. Small comparisons. The subtle currents of envy. Envy does not always manifest through overt negativity or hostile words. Often it hides behind seemingly harmless remarks, gentle comparisons, even cloaked in an appearance of objectivity. But with clear observation, the Stoic practitioner can recognize that behind those small comparisons lies a quiet undercurrent of envy. Stoicism teaches that we should not be disturbed by praise or criticism, nor swayed by external comparisons. However, this does not mean turning a blind eye to those who deliberately use comparisons to plant doubt within our minds. Phrases like, "That's good, but A did it even better," or "Your idea is nice, but B already did that last year," are rarely meant to build. They are meant to subtly diminish. Comparison in speech is not only an unconscious sign of envy, but also a sophisticated tool used to maintain the speaker's psychological position, instead of outright denying your achievement, which could provoke backlash. They subtly introduce a third party to dilute the value of what you've done. Such behavior avoids direct conflict, but leaves an unstealing residue, causing one to wonder, am I truly as good as I thought? Or, do I truly deserve this recognition? From a Stoic perspective, emotionally manipulative comparisons must be clearly recognized. The Stoic learns to observe the motives behind words. They do not react impulsively, but pause to ask, why introduce this comparison here and now? Is it meant to build or to shift attention? They understand that covert attacks usually come from those who feel threatened, not from those who are internally safer. These subtle comparisons can surface in workplaces, friendships, even within families. Sometimes they come disguised as compliments. You did well, just not quite like C, who's much more experienced. Such remarks do not foster growth. They create invisible contests and pressure to surpass others, rather than encouraging self-mastery. Stoicism directs the individual inward, toward a path where comparison is only with one's past self. Recognizing envious comparisons is not about excluding others, but about protecting one's mental clarity, avoiding entanglement in unnecessary rivalry. When you realize your worth is not relative to others, but grounded in honesty and steadfastness to your chosen path, you cease to be wounded by insinuations of inadequacy. Another important point is that someone who constantly compares others may be trying to impose a value system that benefits them. By showcasing examples of better people, not to inspire, but to make you feel lacking, they seek to maintain psychological or social dominance. In such cases, Stoicism advises calm awareness and a clear boundary between healthy motivation and subtle manipulation. Moreover, another subtle form of envy is comparing you against your past self, but in a way that diminishes your present. Comments like, "You used to do better," or "You seemed more confident back then," can instill doubt in your current efforts. The Stoic understands that growth is not always linear, and every phase holds its own value. Therefore, they do not allow themselves to be governed by such insinuations. In short, what seem like harmless comparisons can often be the refined expressions of envy. They may not carry obvious negativity, but can plant seeds of self-doubt. The Stoic learns to recognize them, to observe without reacting, to preserve inner peace, and to remain focused on their own journey, refusing to let others rewrite their self-worth through hidden comparisons. 8. Observe them in failure. Only then is their true nature revealed. Success can conceal many things, but failure has the power to expose all. In Stoic philosophy, failure is not something to be avoided, but an essential part of personal growth. Yet the crucial matter lies not in the failure itself, but in how one responds to it. It is in that moment, when the armor of confidence cracks, when the spotlight fades, that true character begins to surface. Stoicism holds that a person trained in reason and virtue receives failure with calm, learning, and self-responsibility. They do not seek to shift blame, evade consequences, or rush to conceal their faults. Instead, they see failure as a chance to understand themselves more deeply, adjust their course, and strengthen their inner faculties. Conversely, those lacking strong inner discipline often respond to failure with defensiveness. They instinctively search for external factors to explain what went wrong, rather than looking inward. They may blame others, bad timing, circumstances, anything but their own actions and choices. This is not merely irresponsibility. It is a strategy to shield the ego from pain, even if only temporarily. In the workplace, blame-shifting individuals often weaken the entire group. When a project fails, they are quick to highlight others' errors, citing factors like tight deadlines, limited budgets, or changing client demands. While these excuses may contain some truth, when repeated without accompanying personal growth, they signal an avoidance of responsibility, an unmistakable mark of immaturity. The Stoic does not seek to make failure disappear. They confront it squarely. If the fault is theirs, they own it and view it as a necessary step toward mastery. If the fault lies with others, they remain composed, refusing to fan the flames of conflict, and instead focus on solutions. Their calmness in failure is not a trait of temperament, but the result of rational training and the wisdom to distinguish between what lies within their control and what does not. Another telling sign is how a person treats others after their own failure. Some, when standing tall, are generous and pleasant, but once failure strikes, they grow irritable, distant, or resentful toward those who once supported them. Such behavior reveals that their previous kindness was not rooted in steady virtue, but merely a byproduct of success and status. Moreover, how one manages their personal image after failure is equally telling. Those unwilling to accept failure often attempt to rewrite the story, to mask mistakes, or blur the line between truth and fiction. They may spin events to favor themselves or attribute blame to forces beyond control. Meanwhile, the honest individual recounts the story in full, willing even to admit their mistakes without justification. From the Stoic perspective, reactions to failure are not fleeting moments. They are evidence of a character forged over time. A truly mature soul does not view failure as an assault on honor, but as an inevitable companion on the path of self-perfection. They do not strive to convince others they were blameless. They strive to ensure they do not repeat their mistakes. Thus, if you wish to truly know someone, do not judge them when they succeed, when they are confident, or when they are admired. Observe them when they stumble, when there is no image left to protect, when there is no applause or cheering. In that silence, when all roles fall away, their true self steps forward. 9. How they share reveals much. The genuine share to connect. The disingenuous share to control. Words are a bridge for connection, but also a tool for disguise. In Stoic philosophy, observing speech is not merely about understanding content. It is about seeing through to the person behind the words. One of the most telling aspects is how someone shares about themselves, for it is there that truth, falsehood, self-respect, or the need for control often inadvertently reveal themselves. In the Stoic spirit, a person with stable and disciplined inner life shares cautiously, selectively, and with constructive intent. They do not overshare to prove themselves, nor wield personal information as a tool to manipulate emotions. When they share, they do so sincerely, without embellishment, and focus more on clarity than on polishing an image. In contrast, one who shares excessively, in great detail, and repeatedly emphasizes personal achievements is often not merely telling stories. They are seeking validation. They may use tales of success to build soft power, to impress, or even to erect an invisible wall of advantage in the relationship. Such stories often involve exaggeration, selective presentation of facts, and omission of failures or personal faults. Another sign of insincerity is frequent disclosure of others' private matters, especially when those individuals are absent. In Stoic philosophy, such behavior signals a lack of inner restraint and a fundamental disrespect for others. Sharing someone else's personal information, whether under the guise of conniving or offering advice often masks an intent to manipulate emotions or subtly undermine. Those who do this often seek to create a false sense of intimacy, to win trust easily, or to diminish others in the listener's eyes. It is important to note that not everyone who shares freely does so with ill intent. Yet a lack of discretion, especially when telling stories that could harm others, reveals a failure of self-mastery. The Stoic always aims to use speech responsibly, not out of impulse or hidden agendas. They understand that every word carries consequences, and thus they consider carefully what to share, with whom, and under what circumstances. A more subtle form of manipulation occurs when someone shares personal stories, deliberately curated to craft a specific image. They may recount past wounds or failures, but always in a way that frames them as resilient, extraordinary, or superior. These stories are carefully edited, lacking true humility, and designed to elicit admiration rather than genuine connection. While compelling at first, careful observation reveals a gap between truth and the self-serving narrative. Stoicism teaches that the less a person craves recognition, the more lightly and authentically they share, without trying to control others' emotions through their stories. They do not speak to impress, to justify themselves, or to lecture through veiled anecdotes. They speak only when sharing is genuinely useful, nothing more. Furthermore, the way someone responds when others share is equally telling. The sincere listener offers respect, does not interrupt with their own stories, and does not try to outshine the speaker with a more impressive tale. Meanwhile, the attention seeker is rarely truly listening. They are merely waiting for their turn to speak, turning every dialogue into a stage for their own narrative, rather than a space for real connection. Ultimately, the way someone shares personal information, including what they choose to say, how they say it, and how they respond when others speak, is a vivid reflection of their character. Those with true inner depth share to connect, not to manipulate. And in a world where everyone can say much, it is how they say little that is worth paying attention to. 10. Listen to yourself. Intuition is a gift. In the modern world, people increasingly rely on reason and analysis to make decisions. Yet Stoic philosophy, while honoring reason, still leaves space for another form of guidance. Intuition, not as a mystical power, but as the distilled synthesis of lived experience, keen observation, and deep sensitivity, shaped over time. And often, it serves as the earliest warning of pretenses or envy in others. One of Stoicism's core principles is living in awareness, actively observing both the outer world and the inner self. Listening to intuition is part of that inward practice. In the face of a relationship, a compliment, or a social interaction, one may sometimes feel that something is off, even without immediate proof. This is no accident. It is an inner signal, a resonance between emotion, experience, and ceased observation. Intuition rarely speaks loudly. It arrives as a vague feeling, a subtle tension, a brief connection, or a sudden stillness within. But if trained to listen and not dismiss it, one can detect truths that words and gestures fail to reveal. For example, a congratulation that sounds proper but leaves discomfort, or a person whose friendliness always seems to weigh heavily afterward. These reactions are not necessarily negative. Sometimes they are intuition speaking. Stoicism does not encourage emotional reactions. On the contrary, it teaches one to observe emotions without being ruled by them. Regarding intuition, this means not rushing to judgment out of unease, but also not ignoring persistent internal signals. Instead, record them, monitor them, and continue observing the other's behavior. If the intuition is correct, time will strengthen its evidence, An awakened mind does not use intuition as a tool for judgment, but as an internal warning system. When doubt arises, they ask, "Where is this feeling coming from? Have I encountered it before? What in the other's behavior feels out of tune?" Such questions do not dilute intuition, but refine it, guiding raw feeling into focused awareness. Intuition also helps detect the dissonance between words and actions. A person may say all the right things, yet their eyes, tone, or timing may betray misalignment. Such inconsistencies are often hard to articulate, but intuition, a tapestry woven from countless nonverbal cues, can perceive them. This is why in many situations, people know before they understand. Stoicism advises living by reason, but never discarding sensation. Reason sharpens analysis and decision-making, while intuition provides a subtle undercurrent of sensitivity to what has not yet surfaced. In the realm of social interaction, where words and behavior are often expertly crafted, intuition becomes the tool that notices the cracks in sincerity. Intuition is not infallible, but ignoring it or hastily dismissing it can cause one to miss early warnings of toxic relationships, concealed deceit, or festering envy. Learning to live in awareness is not only about reading others through actions, but reading oneself through one's deepest impressions. Ultimately, intuition is a gift bestowed by living, experiencing, and observing. When rightly heard, it does not make us paranoid. It helps us live more cautiously, wisely, and protect our inner peace. In a world growing ever noisier and layered with disguise, staying connected to one's inner intuition is not merely a skill. It is part of true self-mastery. I once believed that living well, sincerely, and harming no one would ensure the world would respond with goodwill, but reality proved far more complex. There were times I succeeded and thought I was beloved, until I noticed a few glances no longer looked the same. A few compliments grew hollow, and a few familiar voices faded into silence as I progressed. It was then that I began to observe more closely, to act more cautiously, and to learn not to trust only what people said, but to watch how they behaved. I stopped reacting impulsively to flattery or to perplexing stares. Instead, I let time reveal the truth. Those who are genuine have no need to prove themselves. They remain consistent. Those who are false inevitably betray themselves through their actions, especially once you are no longer useful to them. Applying Stoic philosophy in daily life is not about becoming suspicious. It is about protecting inner peace. I learned to trust my intuition, yet always verify with reason. I no longer let hollow praise or envious comparisons shake me. This has not made me distant from others. It has helped me choose the right ones to draw closer to. Above all, I have learned to live authentically, not out of fear of being hurt, but from knowing that true peace comes not from the approval of others, but from clarity within myself. If you found that any part of what I shared resonated with your own thoughts or experiences, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. And if there is just one thing you carry with you after this video, let it be this: true peace does not come from being loved by all, but from seeing clearly and still keeping your heart upright. See you in the next video.